Now it says that I am live. Let me know, guys. Let me know if I'm live. Let me know if you can hear me. Endear me. No? No comments just yet. Okay, I'll give it a long longer. I'll give it a while longer. I'm still gonna give it a while longer. Oh, I am live. Okay, cool. We're gonna be doing this in English so that everyone feels included, because on this channel we believe in being inclusive. What's that? Never mind. Yeah, no, I don't want to isolate half my audience. So, welcome to Friday with Foreigner. How are you guys? How have you been doing? I can update you on how I've been doing. I've been, I think in the past months I've applied for about 50 different jobs. Tons of different jobs. Any kind of work I can find. I'm not afraid of getting dirty, so I just look at anything and just go for it. And I think I had one interview. Call me back. Yeah. It's been like trying to get wet in a desert. You know? It's not really been good. It's not been going good. And the thing about Sweden, I realized, is that they have this weird code in their matrix, I suppose, where unless you know someone at a company, you can basically forget about getting that job. And the interesting thing is that this is not just one of those angry foreigner type of issues. I have Swedish friends that wrestle with the same thing. They apply for tons of work, but they get rejected because they don't have references. References being just knowing someone that can get you a job at the company. Like that's what's required to even get an interview. It's kind of ridiculous. And I realize this probably contributes, this social autism of theirs probably contributes to foreigner unemployment. It's not something that people like explain to you when you come to Sweden. Like in this country, we believe in partying more than having an education, since, I mean, that's basically how you meet people. That's how you make connections. That's how you make references. That's how you get employed, by doing the blonde bimbo thing to do. You know, by treating life like some crappy 80s movie. That's how you get employed in Sweden. Nobody tells you that. All these codes you have to read. It's kind of shitty. Yes. I could be a chimney sweep with my hat, you say. I'm reading the chat, by the way, in case that's not obvious. I would like to be a chimney sweep. Get down and dirty. Get dirty. So, broccoli head, huh? I look like a broccoli to you? That's the most hurtful, offensive thing I've heard in like months. So anyway, it looks like I'll be doing YouTube as my full-time job for a little while longer. In case you were looking at the screen or not, I will remind you that donations are appreciated, as I do this full-time for a living, and I have a lot of juicy scoops planned for you. I think I'm working on 3 videos this week. One about politically correct AI, which is a really creepy topic. Immigrants escaping Sweden because of immigration, and that's going to be a really funny, bizarro clown world one. And something on why guys are giving up on dating. Yeah, some feminist bashing. It's going to be juicy. I have to say, one thing that's good about being a YouTuber, however, and this is an issue of gender disparity, I've noticed. One thing that's good about being a YouTuber is that you don't have to use public bathrooms. You don't have to. And if any one of you has ever worked at a factory, then you know the gender disparity of pleasantness when you look at how female bathrooms are versus male bathrooms. Male bathrooms should be considered a form of oppression that feminism has not talked about. Sort of inequality that's foul and terrible and makes me doubt my relationship to humanity, makes me doubt my faith in humanity, okay? I'm forced to ask myself questions like, did you take a piss with your eyes closed? Did you shut your eyes while you were taking a shit? How did you get it on the wall? That's just gross. And then, of course, in Sweden, you have some foreign lady come clean it up after, and the whole thing feels very colonial. It's kind of gross. Whereas female bathrooms are pretty much like a spa. Nobody ever talks about that. Now that's something called privilege, if you ask me. Have I been watching The Lotus Eaters? No, I don't really watch political channels, which people might find ironic, but you gotta take a break from it at some point, you know? Now, what would you people like to see me make videos about? What would you like me to talk about? What's been hot and trending in your vicinity lately? Because I can't really. There's so much shit that I can't really make up my mind. It's kind of like the Netflix syndrome. There's too many choices that you pretty much get anxiety from too much freedom, I'd have to say. Oh, you think I should work at an amusement park? Interesting. I don't think I live in that city, though. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. I can't tell. The Nashville shootings. I am not familiar with the Nashville shootings. I have no idea what's happened there. Have I missed yet another mass murder? Oh. A mass shooting occurred at the Covenant School, a private Presbyterian church in America, in Nashville, Tennessee. That's horrible. And that's all we have to say. I mean, that's pretty terrible now, isn't it? Terrorism becoming more popular, I seem to recall, is something that the Unabomber predicted in his manifesto, The Industrial Society and Its Future. It's a very interesting read. It talks about how overpopulation with too much people, too much cities, too much technology is basically going to make people freak out, feel disconnected, and shit their pants in various ways. Sometimes by blowing themselves up. Yeah. So I think it's important to appreciate the forest. You know, you gotta get out into the woods and just kind of take a big whiff of air. Go back to nature. Maybe even smoke some nature while you're at it. That's pretty much how you should deal with things. You think that stand-up comedy is gonna suit me? Yeah. I've been thinking about that, and then I'm like, wait a minute. Swedish people have a very weird taste in humor. It's like they don't have universal global references in comedically. They like it when you're quirky and witty in a way that's so family friendly it makes me puke, like Johan Glans style. I don't know just how much my humor goes home, so to speak. Oh, the killer was transgender. The mass murderer was transgender. Angry transsexual, eh? Amusement park work attracts two types of people: high school and college age students, and people who have a strong desire to be around children. Yikes, well, you gave it a dark spin there, Gerald. You gave it a really dark spin there, Gerald. Pedophile amusement parks, eh? That's nasty. In Finland, you had a bunch of cases of school stabbings lately. Really? We've had a few in Sweden, too, of the incel variety. The hate your feminist teachers variety. At which point it's becoming way too clear that feminism actually can drive people insane. Yikes. What's going on with the government in Sweden? Still interesting, or did it start to get boring? Oh, it got boring very quickly. Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy. So get this right. The so-called right wing got power in Sweden, and the so-called far right, the Sweden Democrats, the Nationalist Party, became more included, got more power, and things were supposed to change. There's been all kind of huss-fuss in the media and yada yada yada. These are supposed to be right-wing parties that want to have less taxes, not like tax the shit out of their population. Like, I'm paying probably, almost half of my money goes to taxes in various ways. I think the tax rate in Sweden is around 50%, depending on how you count. So, something like that. So what does the government do? Well, they get the power and they create a new energy tax during an electricity crisis, so they can squeeze more money out of people through their energy bills. So they increased the existing tax and created a new one. They double taxed people. Is that what right wing is supposed to do? They were also supposed to, restrict immigration, lower immigration, and make it easier to deport criminal immigrants. The border police, however, doesn't really agree with them, says that it's still going to be hard to do it in practice. It's a bit messier than that, apparently. I concur. And it's going to take a pretty long time before they decrease immigration as well. They're making changes that take forever and are so minutia minimal that it's probably not going to make too much of a difference in the long term, sadly. Instead, it seems like their new supposedly restricted migration laws are going to affect the hardworking immigrants the most. I had a migrant friend who was complaining about this. He has a job, he's trying to get integrated, but it's going to be harder for him to become a citizen now because they changed the citizenship laws for some reason, rather than decreasing the flows and getting tougher on the criminals. Yeah, no, it's messy. It's not impressive. It's very limp, I'd say. Very limp. I don't like it. The right wing in the UK is synonymous with high taxes. It's a mean of keeping down upperly mobile bourgeoisie. Not sure if the same dynamic is at play in Scandinavia. Europe doesn't really have right wing. In Europe, taxes and big government is way more normalized in ways that are weird, ways that would surprise Americans, ways that are kind of hard to give you a list of. And You just get butt fucked more, really. It's visible in the whole gun ownership thing, too. You know, Switzerland does guns. They do well. They have reasonable gun laws, and they do it right. And they're an exception to the rule. Like, you're considered crazy if you want to talk about gun rights here in Sweden, because then they just say, oh, we don't want to become like America. No, what, you want to be like Mexico instead? With that hand grenade comparison? Eat my ass. No. Armin comments, I understand the need for tougher rules on immigration. However, I now have hard-working people studying on master's level that are having a hard time staying. Exactly, that's what I was talking about. If you're studying or working, if you're one of the good foreigners that would actually contribute to the country, they'll just terminate you. They'll exploit you. They'll chew you up and spit you out. They'll treat you like a porno slut in Catalina. It's unforgivable. It's nasty. It's foul. It's not dignified at all. You should talk about why the Swedish Arbetsförmedlingen, the unemployment center, are so bad. The only reason you have to deal with them are to get paid between jobs, but the help outside of that are just as bad. Yeah, the so-called unemployment office in this country really doesn't help out much. They pretty much make you a whore, give you endless internships. You don't get paid very much. It's like getting a welfare salary but having to work. And they usually just maybe get some migrant here and there lucky, but overall they're not very helpful. It's like I said, you gotta party. You gotta party hard, bro. You gotta treat life like an 80s ski movie where everyone's just permanently on MDMA. And tits are flying everywhere and drinks are flying everywhere. That's how you get employed, apparently. By having social connections. Not by Arbetsförmedlingen. That's a joke. Yeah. Welfare office is a joke too. Oh, we got a little donation here. How kind. Thank you very much. Ruvik, you say, can't type anything spicy anymore through LGBTQ tube. Yeah, no, it's sad. I still believe Sweden has a better prognosis for the future than Germany. Really? No, I think Germans are gonna do better. I think they're more willing to get angry and have conversations and maybe dissent. I mean, Germans are known for getting hard by marching in one single file, right? That's what gets a German hard. But the difference I'm seeing is in Sweden, for example, we already have many places that are majority immigrants, and they're not learning Swedish anymore at all. It's like so many immigrants in certain, like in Malmö, for example, and in certain neighborhoods, so many immigrants that immigrants aren't even being integrated anymore because there's no Swedes around them that can integrate them. So they don't learn the language, they don't pick up the social codes, they don't get employed. So now schools, and this has been brought up in our public debate by researchers, schools are now talking about getting rid of the Swedish language in certain schools altogether, so that students at least can learn math and physics in Arab. And this isn't my idea of progress, I have to say. This is kind of why demographics shouldn't be controversial, but rather a given if you care about immigrants and everyone's well-being. Because if you don't consider demographics, who's a majority, who's a minority, you end up in a weird situation where newly arrived immigrants don't have anything to integrate into because they're surrounded by immigrants. So the country they are in becomes sort of a living fleshlight. It's just bad. I wish Swedish immigrants could be more integrated like the Turks in Germany. Yeah, me too. We don't exactly have problems with Turkish immigrants here in Sweden either. They're largely domesticated, secular, good people. I think the problem in Sweden is the intensity of too much immigration in too short of a time period, so that you end up having this impossible for them to integrate, and gangs pop up, and you have this clusterfuck that just keeps building upon itself, where like police officers, high up police officers have now come out and said that it took 10 years to create these problems, so it's probably going to take 10 years to solve them if we do the right thing now, which there's no guarantee it's going to be happening. So that's brutal. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I don't really see how there's any easy answers to this, really. It's a lot of different stupidities working together at once, is what it is. Marcel asks, is Sweden the most leftoid of the Scandinavian countries? Yeah, definitely. Denmark is interesting, because Denmark is like the most anti-feminist country on earth. There was like one study showing that Denmark is even more anti-feminist and masculinity oriented than America, while Sweden has the most feminine and feminist culture in the world. And there's a palatable difference between like how the public debate is handled. In Denmark, you can talk openly about heroin, Islam, immigration critique. There's like no real taboos. They're very goal-oriented, getting stuff done-oriented. Sweden and Norway are pretty much the same. Finnish people are great, probably the most working class of all the Scandinavians, but they do have a feminist government right now, so I don't really know what's going on with Finland. I know there are Finns in the comments section that could hopefully enlighten us on how Finland is. What I do know is that it's funny to talk to Finnish people about Sweden, because they have a lot of roasty jokes to offer. The relationship in the Scandinavian family is a little bit strained. When will I make an action movie called Gangs of Malmö as opposed to Gangs of New York? Well, it's funny you brought it up, because they kind of have done something like that. The show Snabba Cash on Netflix, I really think people should look it up. It has English subtitles, and it's like pretty much a documentary of what migrant crime in Sweden looks like, how the gangs operate, how child recruitment of criminal gangs works, how they get children to do their bidding, how it's all very structural, and also the radicalization aspect of it. It's also pretty gory and violent, and they show how the drive-by shootings take place. Pretty good drama. Yeah, pretty much a documentary of what ghetto crime here looks like. Deeply recommended. And yeah, definitely diverse, if you put it like that. Perkele. Daniel comments, very different in Sweden between the countryside where people are more based and the bigger cities where wokeism is strong, very class-based overall. Sure, but I also remember in my election video on the recent election, I went over some statistics on how the Social Democrats are the strongest in the Swedish countryside. Socialism is the strongest in the Swedish countryside, not conservatism, not the Sweden Democrats. And that does kind of say a lot about Sweden. The only way they differ, the two differ, is maybe their take on immigration. But in terms of like conformity thinking and being a typical Swede stereotype, it's very much the same. Very socially autistic inbred. Sorry. I met a Finnish dude in Stockholm and he was quite happy that Finland was not like Sweden. But another guy says, Finland is sadly following the sad Swedish way, but we hope there will be a big move to correct direction on Sunday, the election day. Cool. Yeah, I wish you people luck, because Scandinavia needs more diversity. You know, can't really just all be so open-minded that your brains fall out. Do you know if Norway is safer than Sweden? Yeah. I don't know how much that's saying though. I do know Sweden has the worst statistics with shootings and gun violence in Europe now. The other ones don't get as much crap for it. Oops. Well, my dear viewers, what other questions do you have in mind? Remember, we are co-creating this, and I am shooting this shit with you, so don't feel like anything is off limits. In Finland, right-wing party is most popular amongst new voters and just overtook the party of our feminist prime minister in the polls, and are less than half of 1% from leading with an election on Sunday. Interesting. That's very interesting. It's the same thing in Sweden, really. If you look at younger generations, statistics illustrate that they lean more towards the right-wing nationalism and conservatism. So the future is definitely going to be conservative, if nothing else than as a counter-reaction to the insanity that's been taking place now. Would you say Muslims are worse at källsortering? How do you translate? At recycling than typical Swedes, typical Svenssons? I would say that everyone but Swedish people are worse at recycling than Swedes. Swedish people are Nazis when it comes to recycling. It's terrible. There's so many Dwight Schrute lookalikes in this country that will harass you verbally, molest you in public with words if you, I don't know, throw a fucking garbage bag in the wrong garbage bin, as if there is such a thing. I'm pretty sure Americans are worse at recycling than Swedes. Ooh. If you want to piss a Swedish person off, don't be racist towards them. Don't insult their ethnic background. Don't set their flag on fire. Don't insult their country. Instead, make sure you buy a plastic bag every time you go to the store instead of, bringing your own little garment hamper. Make sure you don't recycle the right way. Make sure you don't give a shit how you throw your bottles out. That will really bring out the Viking, I'll tell you. Yeah. Thank you for the donation, Katzenflauscher. You say you're an idiot. Take my last €2 as a donation. Well, I'd say we need more idiots in the world because I am not making a lot of money right now. So bring it on, morons. I like your Wimbledon football hat. How long have you been an AFC Wimbledon fan? What the is Wimbledon? I'm not British. I don't know what that shit is. I've heard that word so much in like pop culture cinema, but I can't put my word on what it is right now. It feels like a sport where people would wear blazers and sit upright on horses and look constipated. Wimbledon. Do you do sport? Sadly, no. I did do a bunch of martial arts, boxing and stuff. Muay Thai. That stuff is fun. I intend on doing more, but it's just kind of hard at the moment given the situation locally. If the criminals are convicted in Sweden, does it happen a lot of the time they get released pretty fast and a lot less time than they should? Yeah, it's called it's some kind of discount rule. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but yeah, in Sweden, if you have good behavior, meaning you don't go out of your way to stab other people or shit like that, when you're in prison, then if you act normal when you're in prison, then you get out 2/3 into your sentence. So you're always released a third earlier, which is ridiculous. And if you're like, I think they fixed this now, but I'm not sure. But if you're under the age of 18, then you get a youth discount. And there's also a thing called punishment discount, where the more crime you do, the less punishment you get. Relatively, they kind of like bundle it up like you're the member of a grocery store and you're going there and you get kind of points for the more shit you do. Yeah, kind of like that. That's the system they went with for our prisons. So I mean, it's not weird that crime is so pervasive. Really, it's a sick, unnormal system which would kind of encourage it. It would encourage crime more than Wimbledon. Do you believe in the Great Replacement? And is it a problem, according to you? I don't like that word, the Great Replacement, because that's like, ooh, taboo. Leftists use it to talk about like a right-wing extremist conspiracy theory, which I'm not interested in. So if you're going to talk about like demographics instead, then I already made a video on that, and it's reputable researchers are predicting that Swedish people are going to become a minority in their own country around 2050. The same thing, Joe Biden talked about how the same thing is going to happen in America. White people becoming minorities in their own countries, and I don't really know what to say. I don't really have an opinion on it. I think it's kind of weird to want to do that to your own country. Then again, I mean, if you're not interested in banging and having kids, if you want to be like a consumer, if you want to be like a metrosexual, which is the Swedish lifestyle, it's the liberal middle class lifestyle, then yeah, of course, there's not going to be as many white people around because they don't want to have kids. Because they don't want to bang. Because they don't want to get down. They don't want to take it easy. They don't want to relax. I just know that when I had a job last outside of YouTube, worked at a factory, I got along the best with the minorities, the Arabs, the Africans, the off-the-boat refugees. They were more fun, sociable, warm, than the Swedes. The Swedes were kind of weird, awkward. It's just ironic for like a country to work like Sweden, where you can apply for 50 jobs, but you don't even get an interview if you don't have like a reference to someone working at the company. Because if they don't know you, they don't want to know you, which is like a double negative or something, I don't know. But at the same time, it's like the most anti-social country on earth, where small talk at bus stations is like frowned upon and people avoid each other. It's the most antisocial country on earth, but it requires you to be social enough, like some kind of quota, like some kind of social credit system, social enough that you get employed, that you can sneak into a corporation somewhere and get a job because you know someone there. So you got a party. Well, I just find that really, really weird. So, yeah, the government has been importing a lot of minorities and non-whites to fill up the working class sector, since Swedes are kind of too pretty to take those jobs, too fancy pants, too educated, too and because of this, I worked at a place where it was 50-50 white and non-white, and it was very pleasant. It was fun. It was cozy. So I think, if anything, Swedes are going to have a lot more fun and a lot warmer friends. And hopefully a lot more being done about crime, because in my experience, immigrants are usually pretty... It's a given that deportations should be a thing. They want to kick out the bad apples. I mean, if you think about what the prisons are like and the justice system in the countries that immigrants come from, it's, by the very least, if your norm is like torture, then by the very least you would be like, yeah, maybe not that much, but let's at least punish and kick out criminals who, like, slap on the wrist isn't enough. Let's deal with criminals causing problems. That's the way migrants look at crime, in my experience, when I talk to them about this stuff. Because I do talk about immigration with immigrants, and it's surprising how conservative they are. Just because it's a natural thing. Just because their cultures are more masculine. Like, punishment, action, and consequence isn't some kind of liberal white guilt existential dilemma that you have to ponder like you see with the Scandinavians. So that's certainly a difference. I actually hope there can be more done about crime with more immigrants in charge. But who knows? Maybe I'm just so integrated that I'm blue-eyed and naive like a Swede. Who knows? Thank you for your donation, Ruvik. You're asking, do they berate Arabs for not recycling? Swedes berate everyone for not recycling. It's what they get off to. Like, it makes them hard. They love that the most. Hope that answers your question. Thank you for the donation, Trap Lover. You're asking me... You're saying, my grandma sums up the political sentiment on the Swedish countryside quite well. Typical racist grandma stereotype, but thinks Sweden Democrats are Nazis and loyalty votes for the Social Democrats instead. Yeah, the Social Democrat tradition in Sweden is a very filthy one. Especially old Social Democrat voters are kind of creepy, because that means they must have lived through World War II, when the Social Democrats openly worked with the Nazis, and Sweden's government made it illegal for Swedish media to write negatively about Hitler. That means that they must have lived through that and the forced sterilization programs and then been like, I'm gonna still keep voting for these guys, yay. To me, that's kind of weird. Wasn't that long ago. Oh, Wimbledon is tennis. Thanks for explaining that. This chat is very educational. I like it a lot. What do the talking heads say on TV about the banking crisis? Let me guess, it doesn't affect Sweden? No, I'm pretty sure Sweden's economy is kind of fucked. But the thing is, it's been like a banking, housing, loan crisis for many, many years. We've been in a bubble for a long time, so who's to say when it's gonna pop? Housing market is overinflated as shit, though. Rick says, if you moved back to Bosnia, you would be the richest and most politically correct man in the Balkans. That's funny. Yeah. Probably. I would become a liberal elite right away. I have thought about going back to the motherland, living as a peasant, making my own moonshine based on pears and plums. Aye, the life of a simple man with a plan. Oh, fuck. Is that moonshine in my mug? No, it's some coffee mixed with a little bit of brandy. Nothing too big. Any good Swedish TV shows going? Well, I did just talk about Snabba Cash on Netflix. That's a good one if you like my channel, since it's like a living dramatization of my topics. Personally, I like Solsidan, The Sunny Side. Or Welcome to Sweden. That's a very good Swedish TV show you should check out. Welcome to Sweden is very funny. It's about the culture clash between a Swede and an American. Which, believe it or not, there's a violent culture clash between Swedes and Americans. Violent. Recycling is good. There are concrete benefits with it, unlike the climate hysteria. People who laugh at Greta are not against Mother Nature, says Daniel. Thank you for your Swedish perspective, Daniel. That is cute, and I can't say that I disagree. No, I agree. Recycling is good. It's just, why did you have to put the fucking recycling bin 2 blocks away from my house? They don't have like a poop chute here in my house. And it's a regular apartment building. They make it so difficult for you to recycle in this country. Like, you have to like plan it. Like, you can't just dump everything everywhere. You have to figure out where the cardboard one is, and then the battery one, and then the can one, and then the general one. And it's like, you run all over town recycling properly in Sweden. You have to like schedule a weekday for it. It's icy as shit. And it's icy as shit. So let's take a good sentiment, give it a ton of bureaucracy. That's the Swedish way. And it's dreary. When I visited Karlstad last year, I told our Swedish host that I perceive Swedes as very friendly, and he showed me the finger. Ah, well, you met a Swedish edgelord, didn't you? Yes. Nothing like some working-class hostility to warm the heart. Yeah, no, some of them got a good sense of humor. Let me see. Just looking over the chat, there's a lot of comments here. Let me sort them out. I'll get to as much as you can. But yes, please donate in chat as a super chat, and it will be easier for me to see your questions, and I'll respond to anything you like. Swedes abroad are a different breed, though. Quite social. Yeah. You know, one of my favorite shows is Workaholics. It's a really good comedy show. Deeply recommend it. It's like very stoner, very Bloodhound Gang, very juicy, delicious, right? And one of the characters is an Anders Holmvik, which is Norwegian. And he's insane. And if that can happen to a Norwegian... And also, Mark Wahlberg has a Swedish background, which is just unthinkable. I don't believe that for large portions of my life. I sit and go back and forth between like, really? But yeah, no, it turns out that the most testosterone-filled bulldog in all of America has a Swedish background. The Bostonite. So Swedes can be integrated into something that's not Swedish, something that's human, something that allows emotion, passion, dream, weirdness. Yes. Yes, they can be soaked up into something good. That is true. So when Arabs overtake their country, they're probably going to become more social. Yeah. The problem is just they didn't need to do such immigration in such a manner to just be more social. Just pull the stick out of your ass, you know? What country would you suggest is the best country to live in? I am Swedish and really dislike living in Sweden due to both the physical climate, so cold, and the social climate, so antisocial, and also cold, so where? Yeah, I agree. The physical climate and the social climate are equally freezing. It's absurd. I don't know enough about you as a person to recommend a country, though. I mean, I think parts of America, like conservative states, seem very social, hospitable, friendly. Better taxes, more freedom. I think there are places in Europe that have that same thing going on. Like Switzerland seems nice. And the UK is... The thing is, like, what does a Swede consider too social? Because if you've been starved from sociality your entire life, you're gonna be like one of those prison camps who, like World War II, when the Jews were starving, they were liberated, they were given food. Tons of them died because they ate too fast. They were too hungry. It was too much of a clash. I know I'm a cheery guy, but I'm just saying there's like you might be oversensitive like a clit, right? Probably are. You probably get a Swedish person is so culturally autistic that they might develop sensory overload, social overload from very little. So maybe they would think Britain is perfect, or like Portugal or Spain. A lot of Swedish people like Spain. Spain is very close to their liking, like a good balance in between. So I think you should do some research, do some traveling, and please don't go to the resort parts. You don't really learn about a country by going to like the nicest, most sheltered parts of it. I think a Swede gets on in a place like Minnesota, eh? Where your kind are infested. I don't know. I shouldn't be giving anyone advice. I'm not qualified, nor a role model, nor even halfway sane. But on YouTube, you don't need to be. Is kebab pizza really the most popular pizza in Sweden? Red Risotto asks. Because it sounds like a dream. I left in 93. Oh, that's interesting. You left in 93, the year when Sweden only had 3 ghettos. I know that because I'm damaged by statistics. So, in the start of the 90s, Sweden only had 3 ghetto areas, 3 migrant areas, so to speak. And fast forward like a few years later to 2006, 2007, the number had grown to 186 ghettos in Sweden. Violent ones. So, you left before immigration really made a mark on Sweden and introduced food that's actually eatable, because Swedish food is some kind of attempt at an abortion. I mean, it's prison food, it's like torture food, it's insane. Everything is shellfish. Everything is shrimp, everything is, even their cakes. They have this thing that's like a shrimp cake? And it's just a vile combination that I can't ever comprehend. But I'm not going to get into that because, I'll talk about that for hours. We're not going to get into that. No. That's definitely something that's good about immigration. It sounds like a meme, but seriously, no Swede was starting up pizza restaurants that deliver dream food. So, yeah. If you're ever in Sweden, my dear viewers, you gotta go to a pizzeria and check out the kebab pizza. It is something else. And I didn't know it was so unique. Apparently it's not easy to get in other countries. Most expats in Sweden I've talked to find Swedes quite social. What kind of expats were they? I've noticed this differs depending on country. Like, for example, British people have a thing called banter. They are social bulldozers and they will pretty much plow any situation where there's people. They will plow it with charisma and social prowess, and just kind of get on, yeah. They'll crack on, yeah. Get on. They'll get on with everything. They'll talk to anyone in depth so long, and they like taking the piss, as they call it. They're very socialist people, so they don't even pick up on how horrible Swedish people are, how introverted they are, how inbred they are, how difficult they are, how awkward they are to deal with, because it's one of those things. The more you know about Swedish people, the more you understand of how they think, the more integrated you become, the more terrified you become, the more restricted you become, the more aware you are of how they actually work. And so it's a weird people because it kind of helps being rapey. Not caring too much about consent works in Sweden. They like to be led, and if you take charge in social situations and just kind of violate all of their comfort zones, they'll be forced to assimilate, and you can actually make something out of them. But I think that's what I find so incredibly painful, is the fact that as an immigrant, I end up becoming kind of a helper. I have to lead these people with what being a human and having emotions and social competence is like. It feels like half the time you're holding their hand through social situations, and that kind of gets exhausting. It feels like you're surrounded by robots, not people. So it's like, how much effort is it really worth to put in? I mean, I've had expats also, even British people, talk about how weird they are socially, like how Swedish people, a lot of expats and Brits in particular, Americans, who find it weird how Swedish people stare at everyone and don't say hi. Because that's like, looking at someone as in normal countries usually means you're trying to make contact. You either give them a smile or you say hi or do something. In Sweden, you just stare at people and look like you're judging them and then look away and act awkward. It's like it's like you're in the Matrix. You go out and you feel surveillanced. It's sick. And it's terrible to be baked, to be stoned, and to walk around in that kind of a... doesn't go together well, you know what I mean? Roland, thank you for your donation. Very nice of you. You say, demographics is not destiny. It's a question of ideology and government intentions. A question of demoralization and apathy as seen in different videos. Yeah, I agree. There's too much touting one horn of, like, how we're inevitably going to end up in some kind of Big Bang race war because of immigration, and it's going to be like, it's too left now, so it's going to be too far right later. Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe the new Europe will just be different, but also kind of fun, where we can learn from each other instead of being surrounded by pasty white liberals, because that's sadly what this problem comes from. White liberals. I don't experience much liberal attitudes amongst non-white groups. It seems more rare, if you ask me. So maybe that's what it takes to make Sweden more right-wing. I don't know. Don R. Hansen says, I am from Denmark. Even though we're not supposed to, we do have to have heavy police focus on our border to the east. Oh yeah, like Danish people have started talking about building a wall so they can deal with Sweden, because so much of Sweden's criminal gangs and their activity rubs off in Denmark. You have Sweden imported Arabs and Africans in criminal gangs that are going to Denmark to blow up parts of Denmark as like retaliation for their rival gangs and yada yada yada. So now Denmark needs to have more border controls and police focus ready to deal with Sweden's criminals. Sweden, in other words, is to Denmark what Mexico is to America. There needs to be a wall. I think that should speak on cultural differences in Scandinavia. Thank you for the donation, Soapmaker19. Is that a prison reference? Sorry. Good afternoon, evening, moderately irritated foreigner. When will you and Styx live stream together? Ah yes, Styx, the rock star who never wears a shirt in his videos. I like his stuff. That guy talks about anything. I should get familiar with him. You can feel free to send him one of my videos that you think speaks for my content, and I like it when people help me make creators aware, because it's like extends an invitation that way too. They can see that there's an audience that wants it. Thanks for the donation, Video Game Hunger 01. You're asking, how often do grenade attacks happen in Sweden? Also, do you think the term Swedemalia is stupid? I heard the phrase before. Swedemalia, huh? Somalia, Swedemalia? That's a good one. I haven't heard that one before. I've heard Swedistan, Swedarabia, but not Swedemalia. That's Swimalia. I like it. I'm gonna make an island called Swimalia. Why are houses so cheap in Sweden? Are you insane? No, they're not. They're not cheap at all. You gotta... It's insane. The Swedish lifestyle, the Swedish dream, you know what it is? What they do is they go to school, get good grades, graduate, take out a loan for like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, and then buy a house. I mean, that's just crazy. I don't want to like be put in debt like that young. That's insane. No, they're not cheap in Sweden. They're anal. Why is your English so good? Well, thank you, David Taylor. That's very nice of you. I didn't know it was so good. I think it helps partially being so autistic that you preferred hanging out with the TV as a kid rather than other people and watching like Seinfeld and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Dave Chappelle. Partially that, and partially having an English-speaking fiance. Yeah, I think that really helps. My English has improved a lot since she came here. Could you perhaps fix the Subscribe Star Discord link? Sorry, what is the Subscribe Star Discord link? You can join my Discord by checking the video description of this video, and there's a link there. So you can join, and it works like a notification squad. You just see a server. And then if you donate on Subscribestar or PayPal or through crypto, which is also linked in the video description, just send me a message and I'll give you access, full access, to a heavenly digital place where you are not judged over your autism. Isn't it in the video description? What do you mean? Is there a problem? I think all the links are in the video description. Please update me. Do you know about that video with Barbara Specter? Ah yes, Barbara Specter. Of course, Barbara would have to come up on this channel sooner or later. Yeah, I've gotten a lot of comments about from 4chan people about her over the years, and I've seen that video where she talks about how Europe is going to have to become multicultural to advance, and something about like how Jews are at the leading yada yada at that transformation. But the thing is, she's a wacky old lady in like an organization, and a ton of Jews I know are conservative, right-wing, and kind of see mass immigration as problematic because when there's no good functional assimilation and integration, it ends up becoming too much like the Middle East, and anti-Semitism goes up. There's a lot of Jews who don't like multiculturalism. So I don't feel like one clip speaks for everything. I mean, look at Sweden. Especially in Sweden, there's been no Jewish presence pulling the strings. It's all been Swedish liberals and Swedish socialists wanting to impress America by being so trendy, progressive, liberal that their brains fall out. Just like they tried impressing the world with their progressiveness in World War II and allied themselves with the progressive warriors of the time, the Nazis. It's a pattern, it's a Swedish style, being needy for attention. So, I wouldn't blame the Jews. It doesn't make any sense. And it's boring. You forgot the Power Rangers. In what context? Should we blame the Power Rangers? National dish right now in the UK is curry. National dish in Germany is doner kebab. Sweden is now eating kebab instead of meatballs. Downfall of European civilization. I don't know, Citizen Smith. Is it really? I mean, all the foods you said are better than the alternative, I have to say. I don't feel like Swedes know how to make meatballs. There's not much flavor. They don't believe in spices. I mean, their idea of spice is ketchup and mayonnaise. Am I allowed to object to this? To protest this? I hope so. Swedish youth tend to be more right-wing leaning in politics. Why is that? Well, sorry. What is going on here? I just a second, guys. I think one of the options is... Yes, I apologize. Where were we? Yes, Swedish youth tend to be more right-wing leaning in politics. Why is that? Basically, if you imagine like the typical average Swedish teenager or youth having a typical average Swedish parent, you basically have a Karen, right? You have an Ulf. You have a liberal with such an anxiety disorder you think his dick is gonna fall off. And a power pussy mom who thinks it's a cultural tradition to vote left, to vote for the Social Democrats, because they make Sweden better than America. Basically, Swedish parents care more about the climate than the rape they have voted to import that their children have to suffer through. So their kids become right-wing as a result of the parents' actions, since now we have such a situation where half of 9th graders in the country, for example, have been subjected to either knife crime, assault, bullying, sexual violence, or some kind of robbery. It's a statistic that's pretty shocking that came out from our official crime council, BRÅ, like a year ago. And I think that's why they're becoming more right-wing. They actually have to live in the consequences of how Swedish people vote, at which point the consequence is, well, people get fed up. There's actually a limit at some point. So I don't think it's like you can't fix Sweden. I don't think that's ever been the case. I don't think people should be black-pilled and negative and pessimistic. You can definitely fix Sweden. I'm just saying, why does it have to take so long, you effing R words? Why does it have to take so long? It could be fixed overnight. It didn't have to be created to begin with. Oh yeah. Have you ever met Marcus Folin, the Golden One, in person? No. That guy is built like a brick house. That guy is built like a brick shit house. That guy is huge. I would like to meet him. I would like to spar with him. I would like to spar MMA with him. I would like to meet the guy and do a workout vlog together. I've been wanting to do that for a while. When I find time to go to Stockholm, I'll hit him up. I like his stuff. He's funny. He's An interesting guy. Crazy guy. What do you think of Iceland? Do you think it's better than Scandinavia? Iceland is horrible because you cannot find quality THC anywhere in that country. Something to keep in mind for anyone looking to go there. I don't think it's better. Everything I've heard, Iceland is pretty much the same as Sweden. It's just no one really gives a shit since it's so isolated and they kind of just do their own thing. Very isolated. Let's see in the chat what you people have written. Interesting questions. Thank you for your lovely donation, Robert. You say, here's additional 50 for a beer. Yes! I can't afford beer, so that's very appreciated. I mostly always cook with chili naga or habanero in my pasta/rice. Maybe I'm not a typical Swede. Or maybe, Robert, you're a quirky Swede. Maybe you're a very typical Swede. But you just like to vary it up a little and get a little spicy in there to show you're not like the other girls. I don't know if this comes off as me picking on you. I mean, I really appreciate your donation. That wasn't the point. You're an alright Swede with me. You're a delicious Swede. How about that? You're a lovely Swede. You're a spicy Swede even. And I use habanero a lot myself. I mean, I don't feel like I've eaten unless I have a flamethrower coming out of my ass the next day. I need to feel like there's some kind of consequence to eating as a man to have a sense of accomplishment. When I encounter and climb the porcelain throne every morning of my pitiful existence as a YouTuber. Do you like speedruns? Yeah, I actually do. They're pretty trippy. It's kind of fun to just smoke up and watch someone go like apeshit on Super Mario Galaxy, the DC. The new Super Marios with the Wii speedruns, they're pretty crazy. Yeah. Yeah, speedruns are alright with me. He's surprisingly polite. Well, fuck you, Davey. How dare you have such low expectations of an angry foreigner? Don't you think that's why the foreigner is so angry? Don't you think that's why the foreigner might also be hangry? He might be horny and angry, or he might be hungry and angry. Has anyone really checked to see how the foreigner is doing? No wonder I'm polite. Oh, well, no, that's a good question, Tanky. Why do Scandinavians play football when they're built for rugby? Sorry, are you taking the piss, mate? Scandinavians are not built for rugby. Have you ever seen what Swedish people look like? They're very twinky. They're very, like, slim. They might be tall. You know, some of them might be, like, built big. But, no, on average, And on average, there's a reason why. I remember reading this study about how, like, Korea thinks that Swedish men are the sexiest in the world. Because in Korea, men need to look like Backstreet Boys, K-pop, that whole thing. Feminine, dainty, metro, smooth, shaven, smooth. That's what goes home in Korea, okay? So, twinky, I would like to say. Makes sense that they would play football when they're not built for rugby. That's an interesting perspective you bring there. I recently found out that you can search the name of everybody in Sweden and see their home address, since I was looking up a cousin that lives there, and I would like to know what you think about that. Well, I am sure that all of you people have missed the video I did called Utopia for Criminals, going in depth into why Sweden is a utopia for criminals. Not much clickbait there. In the video, I talk about how there was a shooting even outside of my house, like a few months ago, and how really a lot of places I've been in the country end up making it into crime articles. It's kind of weird to like continually read about shootings and stabbings over the country and be like, oh, I've been to that store, oh, I've been to that neighborhood, I've been to that. You know, it's weird. It's like your videos are becoming, art becomes reality, you know. It's weird. And in this video, the Utopia for Criminals, I actually talk about how this has been connected. The fact that you can... Sweden has the natural state of doxing for all of its citizens. Our version of the Yellow Pages is just a website that everyone's familiar with. You can go on there, type in someone's name, you'll find out exactly where they live. There's pictures, there's Google Map, so you can like get a real 3D idea of where this person lives. There's all this information about how old they are, how much money they make, how much debt they have, what kind of car they drive, who they live with, what their neighbor's name is. It's full fucking, like, get some information from the IRS on a person database that you can search up. So, of course, criminals have been using it to rob people, to find out what kind of cars people own that are valuable, who's, like, the richest in the area. And they do a lot of home invasions. This has been talked about a lot in the media. And it's because of Sweden's statist culture, where it's considered normal to surveillance people, and you just think it's okay to have a website where you can find out everything about everyone. When I say this to Americans, they can't even believe their ears, because this is so not the case in other countries. You're actually allowed some kind of privacy. But in a socialist culture, no, everything needs to be public. There's even a Swedish saying that justifies stuff like this in their culture, which goes, rent mjöl i påsen. Having clean flour in your bag. Making sure you're not up to dirty business. It's fucked. And it enables domestic abuse and stalkers like crazy. I know several women who've had problems with their exes because of shit like that. Because you can't really get a private address in Sweden. So, yeah. They find out, they have to move. It's crazy. Do you think it's fair to say that Sweden deserved the immigration-related issues, considering how the leftist government causing this was elected by the Swedish democracy? Yeah, interesting question. Let's just correct your sentence there. Considering how the leftist government causing this was elected by the Swedish democracy over and over and over again for decades. See, that's my problem with the whole thing. How the Swedes are blue-eyed and think it's something to be proud of. Being so painfully naive, you're the easiest person to fool. So the politicians will fool you over and over again, and the criminals will, and nothing ever gets done because you want to believe in happiness and nice shiny pink things. It's kind of annoying, you know, because literally they voted for the parties that caused these problems over and over and over again. The Social Democrats and the Moderate Party. And I just find it insane. I think there's a certain level of cause and effect that has to be investigated there. Because there's definitely room for improvement, is what I would like to say. How are Swedish attitudes towards marijuana? Well, I remember there being a poll a few years back showing that more Swedish people support the death penalty than the legalization of cannabis. They're pretty kind of boring in a 50s kind of way. You know what I mean? Like, imagine a 50s normie. And that's the cultural attitude you have with a lot of them. They'll drink their asses off and be obnoxious and annoying every weekend. Like, really abuse alcohol as a way to be social. But they think weed is like, whoo, too exotic or something. So a lot of them do it, and more people are normalizing it. But it's sad how how not progressive they are. I mean, Swedish people would basically make Nixon feel like a liberal. Do you believe that there will be a new Swedish emperor like Carl Gustav? No. Well, I mean, it depends on how futuristic you want to get here. Are we thinking like Space Emperor of Sweden? Anders the Machine, Space Emperor of Sweden, 2059. Are we thinking that? I don't know how there would be a emperor unless you're like going into space or something. I think the day of emperors are over. Should they lower the taxes on alcohol in Sweden? They should lower the taxes on everything in Sweden. But yeah, especially alcohol in Sweden is a horrible, horrible system. This is where I want to warn all the expats. I want to warn you guys to be really careful, because in Sweden, you're not allowed to have fun. So take what I just said about weed and then add the fact that if you ever want to buy alcohol that you can actually get drunk from, not like nearly alcohol-free alcohol. If you ever want to get normal alcohol, meaning 5% or more, you have to go to a special state store that's only open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays, not weekends, because they don't want to encourage drinking. So what they do instead is encourage you to have a stick up your ass and have to have a fucking schedule to plan when to buy your booze for the weekend, because they make it such a North Korea feeling deal out of it. Suck my ass. It's so hard to have fun in this country. You can't just go out at like 10 and grab a beer somewhere, because everything is closed and everything is so regulated that it feels like the only thing missing is cameras, and then you have Big Brother in the shape of culture. You don't need infrastructure. David Taylor says, I would rather donate on a different platform than YouTube, too much commission. I agree. So check out the links in the video description of this video down there. There's Subscribestar, which is the #1 Patreon competitor. They're right-wing and like freedom, unlike Patreon. There's also PayPal and other kinds of crypto and locals. I'm on locals as well. There's numerous ways to donate if you look in the video description. And I appreciate all commissions. Moonshine is the future. Yes. Yes, I feel like the Swedish people need to kind of round up all the guys in the countryside that like have the Deliverance vibe going to them, put them in a factory, and just make like by the people for the people. Let's get fucked up. And not have to drink by giving the government such a good chip in. Eat my ass. Are the Swedish women mainly mating with the non-Europeans, or are they still having a preference for Northern Europeans? Or is the kindergarten like the UN meetings in New York? Well, don't know what you mean about the kindergarten UN meetings in New York. Was that a Pizzagate reference or something? I don't know. But as for the Swedish women, I mean, my understanding of it, and this is something I thought about making a video about, it's dating is hard on everyone in Sweden. Dating is very hard in Sweden. And this article was interviewing a virile black man, a sexy black man, tall, dark, and handsome, in a suit even, who was talking about his experiences dating in Sweden. And basically, the Swedish women were very DTF, but not willing to commit long term. I think that they bang the non-whites because, you know, the middle-class princess has to make daddy upset and do something forbidden, so they go and exotify the non-whites, and they kind of bang them, use them as rebel dildos, is what I like to call them, rebel human dildos, and then they go and marry a nice Swedish man to have kids with, because it's very important to be middle class in Sweden. So the irony about multiculturalism and ethnic diversity is that white flight is very, very high, even in Sweden. And interracial marriages and relationships aren't as common as people would think that they are. It's weird. So don't gotta worry about the Swedish women. If you say Sweden isn't tough on crime, you never have earned your vacation budget by driving too fast past a Swedish speed camera. Yeah, that's brutal. It's funny because it's insane. I'm gonna make a video about the police crisis sometime soon. Sweden has been having a police crisis for years, and of course it doesn't look good with all of the unsolved rape and shootings and murders. So in order to fix statistics, they were told by the leftist government, and they still do this, to do a stick hunt, which is when they go mainly prioritize easy to solve crimes like traffic violations and stoners with minor possessions over murders and rapes, because those are harder to solve. So in order to make the politicians look good and make the country look good, police rather chase stoners and people who drive a little bit over the speed limit than deal with rapes and criminals and murders. Yeah. Sorry you had a personal experience with that, but welcome to Sweden. As far as the possibility of native Swedes losing their country to people from Islamic countries are concerned, do you still have hope for Sweden and its host peoples, or have you lost all hope? I can see that you probably didn't jump into this live stream starting when I started, because you probably missed the point where I was talking about demographics and how, yeah, no, Swedes are definitely going to become a minority in their own country. That's just what the numbers are saying, what the population census numbers are saying. I don't know if that's going to end up with Sweden becoming a caliphate. That's a different thing. You have immigrants from a lot of different countries, a lot of different areas with conflicts with each other. And rarely it's... I even made a video about this in Sweden, how there's a big problem with racism in asylum houses, being that Arabs don't want to mix with black migrants and vice versa. So it's not like it's a soccer game where it's non-white versus white. It's so diverse that everyone is kind of fighting with each other if they want to fight with each other, but most of the time they don't want to. So yeah, I don't know, but Swedish people are weird, because I also made a video recently about how like almost half of them want to ban people's right to burn the Quran and the Bible. Just blasphemy laws, basically. In a way, Swedish people kind of are like Islamists with their obsession with conformity and collectivism and hating all kinds of fun and loving rules too much. So, I don't know, maybe it's a match made in heaven. No, I gotta take the piss sometimes. I gotta make jokes about these topics. Otherwise, it's hard to deal with. Are there any tensions between immigrants groups like Turks and Kurds? Oh yeah, there's been like fights in public when they clash at demonstrations and stuff. There's all kinds of, there's also like new refugees coming. There's like Afghans having problems with Africans, Iranians versus blacks, etc. It's like, you see immigrants hating other immigrants more than they hate Swedes or white people, so it's kind of like, yeah, weird, very chaotic. Just gonna check the chat and see what you guys are saying. I'm actually afraid that AI feels like Black Mirror will be reality soon. Yeah, no, Black Mirror feels like a documentary in a lot of the episodes. They arrested Snoop Dogg for having weed in his system when he got off the plane. Yeah, Sweden arrested Snoop Dogg a while back. They also had a very promising basketball star athlete that they deported because he was smoking. It's so old-fashioned, you just kind of want to shit yourself. So old-fashioned, you want to shit yourself. How old was I when I came to Sweden? Oh, I was about 5 years old. So, pretty much lived here my whole country. My whole life in this country. Since it's about around the age you develop memories. So, I don't have a lot of memories before Sweden. Do you have a foreign accent while speaking Swedish? Can a native Swede hear that you were born abroad? No, actually, Swedish people tell me I have a very neutral accent. They try guessing where I'm from, but rarely get it right. There are like differences in Swedish accents, but unless you're ethnically Swedish, you're not really gonna pick up on it. They're so minuscule that it's kind of hard to make a thing out of it. Thank you for the donation, friendly neighborhood T-girl. That's very kind of you, and I appreciate it very much. Now, I think it's time for me to get going here and continue with my night, so I'm just gonna take one last question, and then I'm gonna wish you a Merry Christmas. Sorry, wish you a good weekend. So, let's get the chat livened up a little. Give me a good one. Roll me a strike, sonny. I would almost say from your accent you are from Eringsboda. Yeah, see, I don't even know what that is. See what I mean? I mean, what accent? Do I have an accent? I don't even know what that is. I've heard of a lot of Swedish funny towns before, but I've never heard of that. What about Happy Easter? Oh shit, you're right. That actually is way more relevant than Christmas. That is like the one after Christmas. Easter. Happy Easter. Thoughts on Ramadan? You know what? I'm going to wish you guys a happy Christmas, happy Easter, and a happy Ramadan. Just to get all my bases covered. Then. Dan? Yeah, keeping the suspense going. Then I'm going to answer one of the questions. Have you ever wanted to start your own party? That's a funny question. Yeah, I remember even making like a party logo thing when I started, just as a joke. I have thought about it, but only as like a fun idea for a few seconds in a way where I'm completely aware of why it would never happen. Because it's just too much work. And the amount of like compromising with the media type of shit you have to do, like managing the media when you have a party, is absurd. And also, I don't know if it would make a difference really, because it's not like immigrants with right-wing opinions are more accepted in this country than, you know, people with right-wing opinions. So, don't really see the point. I think you can affect politics and the world in many ways, and it's probably more important to be a nice person than to be in a party, I think. I'm sending a digital whiskey. Well, go on and send it, Sonny. What are you waiting for? I don't mind. Nah, thanks. Will you get a driving license someday? Yeah, I'll get one and drive right out of this country. What makes you think I don't already have one? I'll leave you with that pondering, and then I'm gonna get back to recording some videos for you guys. So I want you to check up on my channel manually this coming week. There's gonna be a lot of uploads. I have a lot of things planned for you, and I hope you're gonna be getting off and enjoying it. And I'll try to do a live stream in Swedish, maybe in a few days, maybe next week, soon enough. So thank you very much for all the support. Thanks for talking to me, and I wish you a lovely weekend, guys. Have a nice night.